Hi, everyone. Here we are, Ulises Lavaroni for Cyclical Dreams. And now we are with latome2, a very interesting project from our friend from the States. And he is going to release the new album, The Future of Desire. And we are very happy to be with you, Ed. Welcome.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Well, I want to know more about you and your art. So we want to know about how was your approach to music? How was your integration with electronic music and experimentation? Can you tell us something about it?
Sure. It really comes from the visual arts, actually. I have a Master of Fine Arts from California Institute of the Arts. I got that in 1980. And before then, I was doing a lot of painting and whatnot. In the late 70s, I started to do experimental video projects, video art, if you will. And in those projects, I would always be seeking some kind of audio, obviously, for the experimental visuals. And I started working with an electronic musician here in the Philadelphia area. His name is Charles Cohen. Unfortunately, he's not with us on the planet anymore, but he achieved a lot of notoriety later in his life. And he and I started to collaborate on soundtracks for the experimental videos that I produced. As I went on with the video work in the later 80s, I started to do the soundtracks myself. And I bought the first DX7, Yamaha DX7, when it first came out, a wonderful machine for the time, a wonderful machine. And I started experimenting with that. In the early 90s, I kind of got very preoccupied with my day job, so to speak. I was a video producer for Amtrak, which is the national rail system here in the United States. So I was, doing a lot of video work for them. In the later 90s, I started to collect some analog synthesizers. Like an Oberheim expander and another Oberheim, and those things, they weighed so much, you couldn't really take, they were too big to haul around very often. So I started experimenting with that, and I had the first latome group, which was in 1997 through 1999. And I worked with some other musicians, and we released 3 albums in those 3 years. And we had an early version of online sales that, we sold about a couple of thousand units, actually, and mostly in Japan, mostly in the Netherlands and Europe. So, in the early 2000s, I got preoccupied with business again and wasn't really, doing anything with with video, experimental video, or soundtracks. And in 2013, I started to get very much back into stuff. I had sold all my analog gear, and I got very, very heavily into Native Instruments software. I still use that quite a bit. I have the entire suite of Native Instruments, everything. So my approach has been evolving. I had some training as a kid, on the piano and whatnot. And I started to get more and more and more interested in the way the piano is kind of an ambient instrument in its own right. I'm still obsessed with the piano, and with the software that I have from Native Instruments and a bunch of other things. I create pianos, using different piano samples from a lot of different varieties and tuning them and detuning them and whatnot. I create layers of piano instruments that I blend into one thing. And it's interesting, Yuli, what you said you've heard guitars. That was a piano.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, in some of the music that
It
we're
reminds
dealing
me
with.
a kind of Robin Guthrie sound.
Yes, I mean, to me, making music is telling a story. And with my collaborative project called latome2 Ensemble, which I have with German musician Hans-Dieter Schmidt, we are much more into a kind of neoclassical kind of a thing, where he's very much of a trained musician, and we bounce, we throw tracks back and forth, and so in that regard, in that persona of what I'm doing, it's a kind of a neoclassical kind of a thing, and that has influenced me a lot lately. You'll probably notice that a lot of the latome2 pieces that are very recent that I have on my Bandcamp page are getting more into that direction, but that being said, I love ambient music, and of course people like Brian Eno and Harold Budd, who actually I worked with at Cal Arts. He was there when I was there, and he did a master class, and we worked together. That still speaks to my heart. That whole just and I disagree. I disagree with Brian on one thing. He lately has called his ambient music functional music. And I don't think it should be a background. I think it should be in the foreground. I think when you listen to ambient music, I think you should open your mind fully and open your ears and not have it as a background, as functional music, I think, as Brian suggests, but as a whole world, another story that can be told.
Definitely. It's a very interesting position. And it's have to do a lot about the perception of the audience. I think ambient music goes from background to foreground because the audience was educated by ambient music. So ambient music teaches to the audience how to listen so soft and delicate and complex to music. So it's very interesting. Okay, this is a great story. And well, I want to now focus on your this upcoming release for Cyclical Dreams, that is The Future of Desire. It's a very interesting selection of tracks. Can you tell us how it was created? How was the process, the workflow? Do you improvise or compose? Or how is your way to work about?
Okay. I use about 4 different approaches. And I must say, you folks, especially Pablo, who curated the tracks, I was amazed at the pieces that you folks picked for the album. And I just want to let people know that you folks curated the selections on the album, and I think you did a fantastic job. The pieces that you picked ranged from the very earliest of my latome2 work, from around 2016, right up to some of the most recent stuff I've done. And it was very interesting listening back to the pieces that were chosen. One of the pieces is called Breathing Beach. And in that piece, I was amazed to hear, and that's a piece from years ago. I was amazed to hear a resonance of what I'm doing now with the piano, and that's not done with the piano at all. It's done with a couple of different pieces of software, and you can hear little chords and whatnot happening in that piece, but it's much more synthetic and much more automatic. What I would do is, Yuli, is I would actually record everything live. A lot of the older pieces are literally me sitting at a couple of different keyboards stacked on top of each other, and actually, triggering my DAW. I usually use Live, Alberton Live, and just letting it go and recording live in one take. Now, some of the other pieces, though, I love to edit. Because of my video career, I did a lot of video editing. So I obviously had to, edit a lot of audio as well. So I think I'm a pretty good editor. Some of the other pieces, like some of the later pieces that are on the album, like Metal and, a few of the other ones, there's a lot of tracks. There may be like 6 tracks. Some of them are very simple. Some of them are very complex, and depending on how they're mixed and how I edited them, you find the piece as it evolves. I really want to emphasize that I really think that, music, whether it's ambient, neoclassical, experimental, minimalist, whatever, I think it really, all that music, and you put it really well, I think when you bring that music to the foreground of your consciousness and you listen to it very carefully, the wonderful thing about the kind of music that we do is every time you listen to it, you can hear a different piece of music. Unlike a lot of more structurally composed pieces, when you hear music like what we make, where a lot of the time there's a randomness to the software, and you trigger that, you set up your software motif to do some random operations to the sound. And when that happens, on several tracks, when you listen to the piece over and over again, when I listen to the pieces that I do and my other colleagues do, I hear a different piece every time. I mean, it really, that's one of the beautiful things about the kind of music that we do, is that you really can invent it for your own listening every time you hear it. It's almost like you're inventing the perception of the sound.
Pretty nice. I completely agree about what you are saying. It's something to do about abstract art as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Actually, my favorite artist of the 20th century is Marcel Duchamp, who was probably the creator of what is called conceptual art and idea art. I think art really has a lot to do with ideas, and I know it has a lot to do with emotion too. But I'm sort of a brat of, an art brat, intellectual, whatever. And I think that, whatever the music is that we do, I think that there needs to be a concept, that can come across. And I think that the music that we do really, should reflect an intelligence, and smart music, not like, not just something that's fluff.
Definitely, and it's what I think is what the audience experience, and this is a very nice thing to share.
Okay.
It is.
Well, yeah, this has been great. This has been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for let us to publish this very beautiful "The Future of Desire," which I when I was creating the cover, I was listening so enjoyable, in a so enjoyable way, and it's very deep and beautiful. It's a very beautiful selection that Pablo did.
Well, thank you.
Fine work.
Thank you so much, and I'm very excited about the release, and I can't wait.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.